perfect. I'm glad our teams were able to kind of set this up. A lot of things in my head that I wanted to ask, and I think we do have a couple of questions written down for that. But perfect. First of all, thanks everyone. I think we can begin. So everyone, thanks so much for joining in. And today we have, as you know, we have Chirag, who is a co-founder and CEO of GoKwik. And GoKwik is an AI ML-based solution which kind of helps brands to enable faster checkouts using a suite of smart solutions. And they're doing a fantastic job in the market. They're working with who knows how many brands right now, I think crossing 250, 300 plus brands right now in India, making a great wave, helping endorse technology out there. And today I'll be your host. I'm Nikhil. I'm the co-founder of LimeChat, and we help with building great experiences on chat. That's basically our motto, building level 3 conversational AI around that. And today's session, we're going to be talking about a topic that's very close to my heart. That's how we can leverage technology to help D2C brands scale, or e-commerce brands to kind of scale and do things like growth hacking and etc. So to kind of pick up the topic about scaling in general, I want to kind of link how we think about growth and what are the factors that lead to growth, right? So in my opinion, growth is a big measure. It is a big relation, something we call customer experience, right? For these brands, customer experience has become a very big priority. It's become one of the top-notch things. We link customer experience to things like retention, repeat purchases, or even endorsement of the brands, where people would help recommend that brand to other people in their circles, etc. And then we want to link customer experience with these new enabling technologies out there, which are kind of helping drive the building of this great experience, or helping these brands effectively build great customer experience. So just for example, to take one example of where customer experience lies, there was a recent survey which mentioned that 92% of people would actually prefer buying from a brand if they gave the service or gave the ability to actually return back the product, which is very surprising given that people don't really buy with the intention that I'm going to return back the product, but still 92% of people feel that that's a necessary. So it's about building that trust, building that customer experience. And as a result, brands have to spend that time and energy and money to be able to facilitate such requests and results. And they have to burn money, they have to burn cash to kind of get there. So to build that customer experience up, they might have to take drastic measures. And what we want to kind of hint on today is how we can leverage the technology to help optimize that or make that more efficient. So Chirag, I kind of want to start up. So according to you, we talked about growth. What do you think are maybe the top 3 factors that come into play when it comes to scaling a D2C brand?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Nikhil and LimeChat team, for having me. I love this topic and this space. I've been in this for a while now, and I've seen the other side of the journey where I used to run a brand. So I have seen firsthand experiences on how to use technology, what merchants are able to think, are not able to think, etc., etc. And you are right when you mentioned that growth is the number one mandate in today's world. It might change in 2022 just because it looks like there is some amount of winter which is setting in. But largely, our world will always be about growth, right? And any new channel, if they have to become dominant, will have to be about growth, right? And if we start breaking down that growth down, then customer experience becomes the number one thing. And all the more for brands, right? Brands typically want to stand for certain kind of experience, which can be very, very appealing only, or which is very thought-provoking, or it can be very touchy also. So tangible as well as intangible. So that's the way to look at it. And we started this company thinking, and our vision is also that we are in the business of democratizing shopping experience. We're saying, okay, and I like to give this example wherein if you were born in US, or if you went to US and you happen to start driving car there, and suddenly if you come back to India, you suddenly would realize, oh, you don't know actually how to drive a car. The world is very different. Yeah. Similarly, what started to happen was that in e-commerce specifically, consumers started their journey on Amazon, Flipkart, and they got used to a certain amount of experience that, okay, this is, e-commerce. And typically your first experience defines it becomes the benchmark that this is how it is going to be. And when you go outside of Amazon, Flipkart, that's where you start to feel that a lot of these shopping experiences are suboptimal. And it doesn't help the channel scale, right? What it happens is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for Amazon, Flipkart, wherein consumers come here, outside of Amazon, Flipkart, discover something, and then again go back because they don't feel the trust, they don't feel the experience. So in my view, if you ask me big levers for growth, of course, in today's world is solving for CAC. That's there. But alongside it, I think experience is a very broad term. But if I have to break that down into all the 4 buckets, which starts from discovery, selection, conversion, and retention, there are massive problems in between all of them, which need to be solved by brands to solve for experience. And unless experience is solved for, we'll continue to play a catching game. At least whatever has been set and consumer expects, that needs to be solved for. Like what you mentioned, I think in my view, returns globally, I'm not talking about RTO, returns globally has become a acceptable behavior of e-commerce, right? It is accepted as a behavior. If it is accepted, then as a D2C brand, we need to get it into our P&L that there is going to be some amount of returns. Depending on categories, it might change. And in fact, I was having a very interesting discussion with someone, and they mentioned that beauty and personal care is one of those segments which doesn't allow returns, right? Hence, their P&L, at least from an e-commerce point of view, still looks good. But when we go deeper into it and ask consumers, why are you returning? One of the biggest factor, in fact, 66% of returns on BPC as a category, if they allow, happen because the color which was shown on the page doesn't match what they get. And that, if you go deeper, there is actually a technology problem there. If you go deeper, there are only few phones which are able to show true color. So then it again becomes an experience problem. It's not a, so to say, it's a technology problem to solve for, right? So, and possibly in my view, this problem doesn't exist in US because Apple shows true colors, and there the penetration of Apple phones are 90% plus, right? This problem is unique to India. But coming back, I think, so if you go deeper anywhere, you will find an experience problem, which will inhibit growth, or if solved for, which will aid growth. That's how at least I look at it. And massive amount of companies in terms of e-commerce enablement or technology companies will be built on it.
I think that's really well put. So you mentioned about 4 different categories. Actually, you talked about the discovery, the selection, the conversion, and the retention. And each one of these problems, each one of these buckets, as you call them, there's a chance for us to kind of make some sort of technical play. Right? And that's a very interesting example that you also mentioned about something so inconspicuous to us, where maybe the screen provider of people or manufacturers in Indian phones is actually leading to a return problem here. So there are a lot of gaps to be filled, maybe, perhaps, right now. So kind of what do you think? Where does India kind of lie right now in this technical adoption, especially for these e-commerce brands? How open are they to kind of acknowledge that technology can actually help solve these problems that they have? Because they come from a very, maybe if you look at traditional retail, the problems are quite different when you come online. So how open are they to kind of accept that technology can help solve the problems? And how much of that technical penetration do you think has happened so far? Are brands trying to accept that maybe technical solutions are out there that can enable to help with that growth hacking, as we call it?
So I would put it that way, that technology usually solves problem, visualize, or the way they solve it. I think if you speak to brands, most of them will be able to at least acknowledge problem statements. They'll not be able to see whether technology can solve it. Like, for example, this returns a problem on beauty and personal care. Now, solution aspect is different. And in my view, that's where technology comes in beautifully, wherein technology is able to solve these problems at scale, right? So solving them at scale is the beauty of technology. And, if you start to segregate them, into different buckets, as we mentioned, you will see that, technology, let me put it other way. I think you can't solve for a scale without using technology at the heart of it, right? So somebody will have to build that technology. Unfortunately, as it is said that if Henry Ford would have asked someone, how do you want to get transported from A to B, they would have said that, make me a flying horses or something like that. So yeah, asking consumers for a solution, I don't think so, at least, is the right way to go about it. I think consumers should be asked for what is the problem. It's our job to solve for solutions using technology, which are scalable. And the beauty part about it, and everyone gets benefit, right? The overall GMV of that channel increases. That's the beauty. So that's how I look at it.
Understood. So you're saying that people at least acknowledge the problem statements in general, that there are problems to be solved here. But then what difficulties do you think that these D2C brands are facing in adopting that technology right now? You're saying that the acknowledgement is there, the need is also there. They understand that to scale their brand, we're talking about growth right now, you have to leverage technology to build whatever they're doing at scale, correct? So what difficulties do these brands currently face in adopting such technology, such enablers, D2C enablers right now?
So of course, everyone realizes, and we all will acknowledge now, the number one problem is, I'll tell you from my experience. We think, at least I used to think I'm a good product manager, but then later on I realized that I'm at best a good program manager. So that's how, you might be a good problem solver, but that doesn't mean it's a very cerebral, a different kind of a job. And getting a good PM, getting a great PM is a challenge number one, followed by, technology teams are becoming a very difficult task to get them on board, right? And LimeChat and GoKwik both are technology first companies. This is what we do day in, day out. Are you there? Yeah. Are you able to hear me? Your screen is kind of freezing in between. Am I on okay internet? Yeah. Hey, Nikhil, you there?
Hi, Chirag. Am I audible now?
Hello. Yes.
Yeah. Am I audible now? Okay, I just switched my Wi-Fi. Maybe there was a disconnect. Yeah. So yeah, please continue. I was able to hear you all along. There was no difference.
So I was saying that one is people problem, that even if you acknowledge that this problem can be solved by tech, getting good product tech folks is becoming an increasingly difficult task. You can imagine that we are tech companies, we face that challenge. So how difficult it is for people who use technology as an enabler becomes even more tough. So that is there. And right from, and you will see that people will acknowledge problem. I think somebody's message that not able to hear us.
Oh,
are you able to hear me, Nikhil?
I'm able to hear you just fine.
Okay, let me know if it's not audible. But yeah. Sorry, can you come again with your question? In all of this, I have got.
Yeah, I think people can hear us just fine. Maybe there might be individual problems that they're facing. So we were just talking about the adoption, the difficulties in adopting technology for these brands. You were talking about the people problem, that there's an option for these brands to actually maybe build an in-house team, get these tech folks, get these product folks, and actually start building. And you were mentioning the fact that, very honestly, it's difficult to build a great tech team, and it's difficult to find the right type of product people in today's market. So rather than focusing on the product, on those problems, maybe handing it off to D2C enablers to actually take it over further.
Correct. And also, if you look at least what I have observed in US or in countries which are high PPP, or the depth of the market is very high, typically you will see, because of the high depth in market, you will see a lot of brands which are early movers. They want to try out new things because that's where they will find opportunities. In India, because of the depth of markets are not very deep, etc. So you will find that early adopter segment is a little smaller as compared to followers, or once there is some amount of PMF, everyone would want to latch in.
Yeah.
So that's also becomes the difference, that if you have a limited, let's say 10% of brands or 15-20% of brands as compared to, let's say in US, which is 60% of the brand want to try new things. So it gives us a smaller, window to try out new things, etc., etc. Hence, the opportunity size reduces, etc., etc. We technology companies, all they want is, more experimentations to go out, and we need to be in that mode of firing more bullets than cannons. And once something sticks, then we know how to scale, right? And for that, we need brands which allow us to go out, make those mistakes, which any technology company would do, right? We have seen all Facebook, Google, all of them screw up at different points of time, but that's the nature of the job. So I see challenges. I think from a acknowledgement of the problem statements, yes, it's definitely there. If you ask someone, is there a CAC problem? Yes. Is there a return problem? Yes. Now asking them whether technology can solve for it, I think that's not the right way to look at it. That's for us to figure out. That's for problem solvers to do it. But rest assured, I can tell you that there are large companies to be built in those spaces. If we can imagine that, and I keep telling this, that in 2014 we were at $4-5 billion e-commerce market. Today we have become 50-55 billion. So that's anyways 14-15x.
Yeah.
And if you look at that number and then look at, it's headed to 350 billion, then you'll say, okay, it's now 7x from here. And we've done the difficult part wherein the foundation is set. Now people have tasted success. So all of that is happening. So you will continue to see
grow. No, that's perfect. I think a lot of the points that you mentioned are quite applicable for any business to kind of get started. Especially the fact that you need early adopters to actually try and test out new technologies in the market. So there's always a concept of having early adopters, then there's a laggards in the market, basically. So I think we're going through that wave right now where a lot of these enablers are actually coming up, and they're able to enhance or actually solve those technical problems or solve the problem statements that are out there. And we're seeing that growth. And we saw there was a huge surge in the whole D2C market, into the whole D2C space. In fact, not just the D2C space, but the enabler space as well, because they were helping these brands get off the ground so much quicker. So if a brand was taking maybe 2 years, we're seeing the trends. If you look at the reports out there, the new age companies are actually scaling up in size in maybe half the time as companies maybe 5 years ago. Right. In fact, when we started as well at LimeChat, we were also thinking about leveraging when we're actually starting a technical company, we're looking at what type of gaps are there to kind of be solved. And when we started, we saw there was a big gap in customer experience in the D2C domain. And hence we set out to build the best type of technical AI, conversational AI kind of solutions out there to kind of build those great experiences on chat. So now coming to GoKwik, when you look at GoKwik as an enabler, where exactly does GoKwik kind of, what are the type of touch points that GoKwik can solve for a brand, and how have the results been so far for the brands that you work with, at least?
So I'll tell you, when we started the business, as I said, that we want to solve as a company, we want to be known for solving some of these tedious, tougher shopping experience problems to be solved for outside of Amazon, Flipkart. So by nature, we are in the business of democratizing shopping experience. We're saying, okay, can we provide an Amazon type experience to the non-Amazon world? Can we provide more power to Davids of the world to fight against, or at least have a level playing field? That's what we do. And then, as I said, that there are problems across shopping experience. We thought that conversion is a good place, good bucket to start the business. So that's where we started the business. And of course, over time, you will see us traversing in different buckets over time. And if we go deeper into conversion, you will realize that India is a little unique country, wherein cash on delivery is a very heavy segment in our country. Continues to be 60, 70, 80% of all orders, all e-commerce orders are on cash on delivery. And we have seen multiple events wherein at least I had thought that, okay, cash on delivery is going to go away. And this is our digitization moment in the country. But what has happened is, and one was 2017 demonetization, then COVID waves, all of us switched off COD thinking that this is our moment. But I think whenever we have gone back to offering CODs, it has gone back to the same levels, reflected in other matrices as well. If you look at cash in circulation in the country, etc. So I think it's a channel which reflects a lot about our country. And in fact, I have been visiting tier 2, tier 3 towns to understand this phenomena deeply. And at least my belief and my conviction on that this is a channel which is an India-specific channel will continue to be there even a decade from now, while digitization will continue. But you can imagine if the pie is growing and if this segment comes from 60 to 50 also, it's a significantly large channel, right? So that was one area which I thought that, okay, and merchants used to have a significant pain in that channel, which is known as, this channel has this problem known as RTO, which is unopened boxes getting returned. This is different from opened boxes getting returned, wherein, somebody came at your doorstep with an order and you decided not to take the order. So it's a big loss for merchant. It's not a normal behavior of e-commerce, unlike a return. This is, I was a merchant. What I used to do was I used to pull out all these Excel sheets, figure out some pin codes, block them, etc., etc. And everyone would do this, thinking that this is largely a is largely a logistic problem. And hence you will go out, give your KPI to a supply chain guy, all of that stuff. But then largely when we looked at it, we thought that this is largely a marketing problem. And can we solve it pre-funnel, on the funnel, in the business of predicting consumer intent? So that's the route which we took. Then over time we realized, and then we had very close ears to the customers and what they were asking us. And one of the big problems I think what told was that even in payments, nobody had looked at it from a very e-commerce lens. So success rate, from a payment gateway versus from an e-commerce brand means very two different things. The way at least any brand would look at it. So we thought, okay, we understand e-commerce, so can we solve for that? So we solved for that product also, wherein I can say we have a best-in-class UPI product. And then over time we realized that, okay, there is a large problem statement of starting add to cart to end of the transaction thank you page. And there are multiple steps. There are almost 16, 17 steps in between, which need to be done, right from creation of an account to discounts to how do you want to pay, to shipping, to many other things. And can we optimize for them? Can we solve for them? And one of the bigger drops there is addresses. Can we solve for addresses, pre-fill addresses, people who have used GoKwik before? And so these are the three problem statements today we solve for. But now, of course, we have deeper products there, which we solve for. Right from success point of view, I think from our COD RTO proposition, we have seen merchants, when we started the business, we were very skeptical that, okay, are you right in terms of saying that this is a consumer intent problem? So we've traveled that journey in the last 1 year, wherein a lot of merchants tested us. We did a lot of A/B experiments in terms of whether this works, whether it doesn't work. And now we have reached a stage where almost, I think this month, March ending, more than 50% of our merchants use intervention as a method to weed away bad actors in the network, because we pass that signal to them, which is a very, very positive sign for the entire ecosystem, right? Wherein we are able to weed away people. And otherwise, if you truly ask, COD is not a bad channel. Merchants would love it, just that it comes with a very nagging problem, which doesn't help them scale. So if you go deeper into the problem, you'll realize that actually this is the only devil in the overall thing. Otherwise, there is no such problem as such. Even for logistic companies, there is no problem.
Yeah.
They love making money on this. Just that they want to have the amount of reattempts they have to do. It just reduces the margin and makes it worse than prepaids. So we have seen close to, so almost 50% of our merchants are using interventions and are different tools in that. In fact, over time, you will see that we are going to produce 30 sub products in that, which are going to solve this entire problem in the next 3-4 quarters. And we have brands now who have seen 30 to 40% reduction in their RTO through us. So that's on this product. On payments as a product, we have seen 20-25% uplift in success rates, not from a PG point of view, but from a payment page to a transaction point of view. So that's there. And from a checkout point of view, of course, we have seen close to 40-50% uplifts in conversions, almost 20-25% improvements in prepaids. So all of that is happening. Yeah.
It's quite interesting. So you mentioned about the whole, like, again, COD is this necessary evil in the market right now. It's not evil per se, but the side effects of how the market is, the consumer, the intent behind the consumers have made it into a very costly channel for these brands, as you mentioned. You talked about this concept of interventions that you can take as a brand to help with this. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, how do you exactly help with those particular type of interventions? You've mentioned that 50% of your merchants have seen success and have seen a decent amount of reduction in RTO. So what type of interventions have you helped them with over here?
So think about it this way, wherein, when you think about RTO as a problem statement, and when I said that it's largely a consumer intent problem more than a logistic problem, then we are in the business of predicting consumer intent, that whether this transaction is going to get delivered or not, right? Or whether we should offer COD to this transaction. To give you a parallel, think of it like a credit risk problem, wherein you are evaluating whether we should give credit or not. Once you've given credit, then it becomes a collection problem. It's no more a credit problem. Similarly here, if you've given COD to someone, then it becomes a logistic problem, or it becomes a delivery problem, and can you deliver quicker, etc. But was that person worthy of giving COD is what we are testing. And although this example is only true at 20,000 feet, if you go deeper, the problem statements are very different, right? And when we say that, okay, and this part people got it, okay, then you are predicting, how do we believe you, was the immediate question, that, okay, are there going to be false positives? Are you going to block good orders, right? So what is going to be the accuracy of this? These were the questions, and these are all right questions, right? What took us time is that people wanted to do A/B testings. That, okay, we will send 100 orders, which you said were bad. Now let's see what happens. So we traversed all of that journey, and then people realized that, okay, what we're saying is 90% accurate, 85% accurate. And we demonstrated that, okay, if you do the maths, you will realize that it's bottom line positive for you. So why are you, doing that? So it took us time, and I think now the ecosystem is matured to a point wherein it has started to move that way. And it's largely a network problem. We sit on a large network today. So close to, 70-80 million users. So that's the benefit of the network.
I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, from a technical lens, using data science basically to solve a real world problem, it's fantastic to see. And as you mentioned, it's a very data driven problem, basically, the one that you're solving. You need to have a lot of data to kind of figure out whether or not the user it has a chronic disease of maybe doing an RTO or return, or not fulfilling their commitment, or they're more impulse in nature, that they make COD orders, but they're not actually willing to actually take it. Right. On the other lens, you also talk about RTO, which is the other half of this. They're kind of related in a way. The problem of COD, why COD is not so great at times for brands, is because of the RTO problem, right? So the interventions that you're taking place right now, where you kind of label whether or not this particular customer should get an option to do COD or not, is that, and that's primarily helped to reduce RTO as well. Are there any other methods that you have done to actually help reduce the RTO, apart from just maybe doing some kind of user analysis?
So the way we define the problem statement is, or the way at least we have bucketed is, that one on the funnel, the tool which we use is block more. Block more, weed out bad actors. Once we have accepted the transaction, then it's all the effort is deliver more. Then all the effort, whether it is communication optimization, whether asking you for intents, ensuring that the right logistic guy is there, better, can we convert that transaction to prepaid, pay while delivery, rescheduling options, all of that, right? That's the effort towards deliver more. And then there is third thing which we do is audit more, which is logistic players promise that, okay, we're going to do 2 attempts. We're going to deliver as a SLA in 3 days. Then what is the SLA overall? Are you meeting those SLAs or not? So keeping them also accountable to the promised SLAs. Because that's what, over time people would want to start showing on the funnel. So those are the 3 broad buckets in which we take, we have developed different tools which act in ensuring that. And, if you look at it mathematically, RTO is removing bad actors and then ensuring that whatever you have accepted is delivered more. So that's how we have divided.
Fantastic. I think that's a very structured way of thinking about it. And all your answers actually had a very structured way of thinking. So it's good to see. And I think that kind of is necessary to build a good tech-enabled company, by the way. So in all your experience, you work with so many brands across the year and a half that you've been active, and before that as well. Have you seen any great instance where they've actually leveraged technology in a unique way to maybe solve a problem, and it was kind of maybe fascinating to you in any way or form, right? Maybe apart from the domains in which GoKwik works in, but any way that these brands were able to leverage technology to actually hack or scale their growth?
I think there are a lot of examples which I see now on, specifically, let's say, beauty brands in terms of applications, and which are now popularly known as filters. That how can you use something and really see that, okay, which is, let's say, in a physical world would be known as try rooms. How do you replicate that experience online? Can you show me, okay, how will I look? How will this dress look? And that's a technology problem to solve for. And I have seen some amount of that happen on Instagram, some amount of that happen on Snapchat, and I see some amount of apps also which are there, which have come up, which have tried to solve specifically for, let's say, fashion companies in that way. I think that's a very interesting solve in our kind of space, wherein if I'm able to see, okay, how am I going to look, that it becomes a very interesting solve. I can tell you many such examples, right from affordability point of view. If you look at affordability as a problem, which is not only e-commerce as a problem, but it's a large problem wherein can you increase affordability? It'll all, of course, lead to better consumptions. So what it means is that you start to lend. And the way at least Klarna approached it since initial days, I think they solved it via technology. Wherein they started with conversions as a problem and then use that tool to move towards that. So that's their, and I think the way at least Elon Musk is going about solving some of these problem statements, I think technology is at the core of it. And of course, you start to look at first principles. How do you start to break problems really from the core? And then use technology, because technology has evolved so much. So you build on top of it. That's how, at least outside of GoKwik, I can give you multiple examples, but I think technology that way is very, very fascinating.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you mentioned some really interesting parts about how we would like to, maybe if you're buying apparel, for example, we would like to maybe have a virtual try-on room. And based on those concepts, when this whole buzz around this metaverse, basically. In fact, there's some e-commerce stores which are going online on this metaverse. For example, H&M opened a store on the metaverse where you can actually go ahead in this virtual kind of store. You can try out things. You have these assistants which are talking to you, right? Based on your behavior, maybe who knows, going forward, the behavior of the customer in this metaverse could be an input into GoKwik's algorithm to figure out whether or not to give them the COD or not. So it's quite interesting what the future lies. And I think it's just about us to kind of keep innovating So one lens, you have to keep two lenses, I think, when you're looking at the problem. You can look at how can you deliver value in today's, in the present, basically. What do brands need right now? And what will brands need maybe 6 months, year, 1 year later, 2 years later, 5 years later? And you're always on the same, you have a option to kind of keep both in your radar, so that you're delivering value currently and you have an ability to deliver value in the future as well. Right. So that makes it really, really exciting, because as you mentioned, more brands are going to come, and that puts an onus on enablers to actually start to figure out what are the gaps in these brands when they're trying to scale, and how to plug them up, and effectively, that's where it is. And customer experience, as you mentioned, you've summarized that really well, that um, all the technology, the enablers that we're talking about, everything lies at the heart of all of these enablers, is to help with giving the customer the power to make that purchase in a more seamless way. You talked about, GoKwik checkout, adding the ability to have UPI, which was not there before. It's a very simple concept, but if you think about it, it's so powerful, especially in the Indian market. And then you're talking about having COD and enabling COD, not just saying that let's get rid of COD as an option, but how to enable COD for a brand. And then finally, the repercussions out of it, how to solve for that. So thanks. I think that was really, really helpful overall, for at least, I think, not just me, but a lot of people in this space. And I think you guys have been doing a fantastic job in helping scaling that so many brands. And I think we have a lot of brands that we work with in common as well. There's a lot of possibility for when you're talking about these problems. I think all these enablers, the best part about this space, which excites me the most, is that there are all these enablers out there, and they're all working on different parts of the problem, but they're all problems of the same coin. And when they come together, I think the value that they can create is just enormous. And in the end, it's the brand that benefits from it, and then the consumers of those brands as well. So
Yeah, totally. And I think just to add to that, I think one more example which I could recollect was that the way the adoption of Face ID now has become prevalent. I think if we go back 5 years to 2015, we all thought that this is something fascinating. I don't know whether this will run or not, and here we are. And using that to make e-commerce even more experience is going to be the next step. I keep telling people that you will be shopping on YouTube and you will just smile and the transaction will happen. Today it looks like a distant dream, but in my view, that's only a couple of years away. So that's how technology is making it seamless. I can go on in terms of how content is, or commerce is moving to content. Uh, and the second part, I think what you were saying, uh, looking at problems from what it is today and what is going to be 6 months down the line. I think I like to apply the other cut wherein you have brands in different kind of journeys, wherein a small brand, a starting brand, a fledgling brand will have a very different need. A brand which is well set or which has seen some amount of scalable product market fit will have a different need, and somebody who's looking at now a profitable product market fit will have a very different need. So can you cut their needs and not have a cookie cutter approach that, okay, we like to believe that everyone, can we develop something which is needed by everyone? Unfortunately, that's not true. ऐसा होता नहीं है that you typically get one thing, and unless you develop something like water which is needed by everyone, so which is typically a natural resource. So typically you will have different personas, or different nature of companies have different kind of problems, and you would go deeper on different exercises. So that's how I look at it, and then evolve that, okay, is this a problem which can be solved by a product? Is this a problem which can be solved by operations? Yeah.
And you're right, that's what makes it hard. That's what makes this problem hard. And each brand, it's also constantly evolving, right? A brand starts off as small, then it becomes larger, then it becomes a large brand. So at each step, they have to kind of reinvent themselves as well. Maybe having the right partner at each stage of that journey is what's required, or having the right product in this case, right? So amazing. I think that was very, very insightful. We do have some time. We have a couple of minutes for any type of questions and answers if people want to ask. So I have two things open. I have the chat open. You can ask a question on the chat, or you can ask a question in the Q&A if you have any for Chirag. Yeah, feel free. So we have a question over here. So how can a newly launched D2C brand incorporate entry-level technological expertise to set the right course for scaling their business? Basically, to kind of summarize that question, how can a newly launched brand think about leveraging technology to scale?
So that's a good question. And as I said, that what we were discussing last, that if I am starting out as a new brand, what do I want? I want that, okay, can I find my first set or first cohort of customers, and then think about that, okay, is that cohort replicable, right? Typically, I am in the search of that product market fit zone, that, okay, are there takers for my product, right? And then if you break the problem and then you look at it from that lens, then you'll realize that, okay, proving that, then I need a technology platform. I don't need to go out and negotiate with a lot of logistic guys. Let me get a logistic aggregator first, right? So that's where an e-commerce enabler comes in, right? That's where a GoKwik picker or some of these guys come in. Similarly, on the acquisition side, I know that, okay, do I need to go to a performance marketing agency today? Or can I manage that in-house using a Facebook algorithm in certain ways? I can find out my audiences. I think largely what it'll then the answer would be that, can I have very different AB pages, 50 different variations of my pages, which can appeal to different kind of audience. There also you have a lot of technology products which are available. Now, how do you use them, right? So that's where I would invest money and say, okay, can I, use this and find out what works for this brand, what works for this product or not. And logistic can be done by somebody else. Facebook is anyways solved to an extent, and we can solve using different lookalike algorithms, different campaigns can be set. That way you can have a freelancer working in, or you can work it yourself. I have myself done that. So that's how I would use technology. I will start with a very basic, platform, Shoptimize, Shopify, anyone, which gives me initial leverage. It might not be the best in class thing. I won't go out, at least personally, I won't go out and recruit someone to build out a very fantastic website. Whatever we might want to feel that, okay, there is going to be brand resonation, etc., etc. Day one, brands are built over time. You can't, short circuit that exercise. So one small interaction wherein you're trying to get commerce done, it's very difficult to do brand salience there. If I were to, build out a brand in that exercise, I would do a very fancy packaging, put a lot of content material inside that packaging, and ensure that that kind of resonates with the consumer. So that's how at least I would go about it. Use technology mainly for understanding audiences. I would invest in a lot of analytics in terms of understanding the user.
So almost kind of seems you don't need anyone to build a brand with you. You can do it one-man army with all these technical solutions.
That's only the first, when you are doing 0 to 20 orders, 30 orders, because you are trying to search.
Yeah. It helps you get the base set up really, really quickly, which was a big pain point earlier. And then you have to optimize after that. That's up to you how you want to build the brand. And then, we have a very perennial question. I think this is the most commonly asked question in this space. Are there any unexplored solutions around reducing the CAC for brands? This is again the very typical the customer acquisition cost problem. I know I have a lot of thoughts about this. What do you think? Are there any untapped solutions out there right now that we haven't thought about?
I know. I think untapped, as in, at least I know that we can extract a lot of juice out of repeats, solving for abandoned carts. These are, at least when I looked at this problem statement, these are at least in the stack rank. These are the top 2-3 ones which come up in terms of. I can go on in terms of exploring newer channels, etc., which I'm sure a lot of people do. But I think we pay a little less emphasis, or if we can pay more emphasis on solving for repeats, right? And I think we need to move on from the usual RFM model, wherein recency, frequency, monetization. I think the world has evolved to much more deeper ways of solving for it. And India is anyways very unique in terms of number of channels. So we need to be in the zone of like what you do on WhatsApp. And similarly, abandoned carts. I think that's a gold mine to be explored. How can you go out and solve for it? Those are at least the big ones in terms of areas. And there are also, if you start to go deeper, you will realize that there are solutions which are available. It's just that we continue to solve for top of the funnel. We invest all our resources there, without forgetting that, and in fact, a lot of VCs have also now started to ask, how do the cohorts look, right? Are there repeats, etc.? So
Yeah.
D2C brands also are in search of, repeats, proving that, okay, people come back and then do the repurchase. That's what matters in a brand, right? First purchase is great. You are acquiring a consumer, but is that consumer coming back? And is there a CAC to LTV which is sets in?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this particular problem is very close to what we do here at LimeChat. So I think the answer to a lot of this CAC and retention is the word personalization. How can you make all of these interactions more personalized in a way? So we talked about abandoned checkout. How can we make that experience of abandoned checkout not just a mail? It's just like, okay, you get a mail after 30 minutes. How do you make it more interactive? In fact, I think we're about to launch a product with GoKwik. So I'm very excited about that. LimeChat and GoKwik are launching a product around abandoned checkout just next week, where we have a very, very seamless experience, a very interactive experience with the customer and helping tap into that channel. So I'm very excited about that experiment. But coming to the top of the funnel as well, I think there are ways for you to actually tap into the newest technology. For example, we're experimenting with something called conversational marketing. So what does that mean? That when you're showing ads to your consumers, you can identify which type of consumers would be better converted when they have a more interactive kind of session. So don't take them to the website, which is the standard. You won't even think about not taking them to the website from an ad, right? Take them to maybe a conversational medium and actually convert them there. There are other concepts out there that have been tested in places like China, etc., which are also very chat dominated markets, by the way, where we have a concept of social buying or social selling, right? We call this term as social commerce, where how can we leverage lookalike audiences to buy together? And that is typically you buying with your friends, right? And you used a very magical word called user cohorts. I think that is gaining more and more traction in today's day and age for these D2C brands. The brands which are able to leverage user cohorts correctly, in my opinion, are the ones who are able to provide much better personalization, and they're able to provide a much better customer experience, and they're the ones who are able to crack retention. Not just retention, they're using that data to funnel their ads and their marketing spends as well. So all of it is actually around, it's going to become a data play going forward, and we believe in that. So the brands which are able to leverage that data properly are the ones, and able to kind of link it with different D2C enablers out there, are the ones who are going to be able to maybe crack the market. So I think a lot of things to explore.
Right. Totally agree.
Perfect. I think that was great. We have just run out of time. So thank you so much, Chirag, for joining. I think this was really great. I think there are some other questions, but we'll make a note of the questions. We'll maybe get an answer from you on that and give an email to all of the people who have attended. That's great. Anything that else you want to add? Otherwise, this was really informative session for all of us.
Thanks, Nikhil, and thank you everyone for attending. Look forward to building more products, doing at least whatever we learn, and then sharing it with others and getting to know what other things are still plaguing them. And we are in this business of helping merchants, helping e-commerce grow. So let's continue to build this together.
Absolutely, and it's very exciting. Just love to pick your brain sometime. Just discussing about what the future holds. That's what motivates us and what drives us to build. We're looking forward. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend. Bye.